Hello and welcome back to Elise Reads and Speaks, and thank you for joining me for my first day of Vlogmas. I am doing the 12 days of Christmas leading up to Christmas, not on Christmas Day, and we're celebrating with the days of Christmas on BookTube. So for my first day of Vlogmas, I am bringing you my October wrap-up. Oh yes, I said it. My October wrap up, because that's how behind I am with content. But you know what? That's what we're using some Vlogmas for. I'm gonna catch you up on my October reads, my November reads, and let you know how my December is going. So let's just kick it off with what I read at the beginning of October. We'll see what I remember. We'll judge the books that I don't remember, because that means that they weren't that great. All right, and we'll just see how we do. So at the beginning of the month, I started off with Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. I had people start to pick out books that were on my shelves that were unread and telling me either to read them or stay away from them. And then any book that anybody even mentioned, I have added to my list of books that I need to get to. So they've become top priority. And Spin the Dawn was one of those books. So this was pitched as a Project Runway meets Mulan, and that sounds really appealing to me. So I will tell you, the beginning of this book totally had me. I mean, I was into the competition. There was some cutthroat stuff going on in this Project Runway-esque world. And then they went on a journey. Listen, I don't know about you, but once these characters decide to go on a journey to like Middle Earth in every freaking book, it loses me. So up until the journey, I was so into it. And then they went on a journey and I just lost it. So because I was so into the beginning, I did end up giving it 3 stars, but by the end of the book, I was just waiting for it to be over and I just was not into it, and I will not go on to the next one. The second book that I read in the month of October was Katharine Parr, The Sixth Wife by Alison Weir. If you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you know how much I love Alison Weir, and I have loved the Six Tudor Queens novels. But I will say, this is the one that I like the least. I did give it 4 stars because she still writes really well and I was into the story, but it just didn't grip me like the other 5. I don't know why. And in my head, she's not the most boring queen. That would be Jane Seymour. But I was finding myself getting a little bored of her story in here. I don't know. Maybe my expectations were too high because I gave all the other ones 5 stars and I expected this to be a 5-star read. And it was just, I mean, it was okay. It was good. It was good enough for me to give it 4 stars. I liked all the other ones better. Then I listened to the audiobook of Truthwitch by Susan Dennard. Okay, this is one of those, you guys. This is one of those that I gave 3 stars and I don't remember much that happens in the book. But then I went on to If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy, and this was a pleasant surprise. This was like Bachelor-esque with fat representation, but also it was like Cinderella meets The Bachelor. Like, if you know me, you know how into The Bachelor I am. I will read any book that has like the Bachelor premise set up because that's just what I enjoy. And this one hit the spot. Like, I was so into this. But at the end of the book, I was just completely satisfied and I gave it 5 stars. Is it the best thing I've ever read? No, it's not the best thing. And I will say that the relationship was a little flat, but I enjoyed her relationship with her sisters and her like finding out more about what she wants and what she's looking for. Like, I was into her self-discovery. Man, this was just a super cute story. If you're into Cinderella and you're into The Bachelor, try this one. Then I read So Many Beginnings, which is a Little Women remix. This is by Bethany C. Morrow. Now, if you remember back to my chapter sampler, I think in like September sometimes, this is one of the books that I read maybe a chapter or 2 from to decide if I wanted to keep going. And I mean, I was intrigued. I wanted to read on. And I will say, this story was good. Like, I liked this remixed version of Little Women. I'm a Little Women fan, so you kind of know what's gonna happen in the story. Like with any retelling, you know the bulk of what's gonna happen in the story. You're just seeing how they make it different. And this one I thought did it really well. So it takes place in North Carolina and it's it's a colony with newly emancipated slaves. So they're kind of like starting their own village, and there's a lot of, you know, backstory from slavery that's coloring their choices, their decisions, but also like you see the strength in each of these characters with the choices they make. Like it was really interesting. I thought it was a very inventive way to take Little Women. And I will say, I will say, if you're familiar with Little Women at all, there is a couple that does not end up together, that should end up together. And this book got it right. That's all I'm saying. Then I read The Way I Say It by Nancy Tandon. This was a middle grade read. This focuses on articulation disorders. There's even a TBI in here. They work with a speech therapist. As you know, I'm an SLP, so I like anything that deals with speechiness. And in a middle grade presentation, I was really interested to see how they would do it. And I really enjoyed this one. I gave this 4 stars. I go into it more in depth in a previous video that I did, and I will link that down below. It's my SLP recommendations for books to check out, so I just won't spend that much time talking about it in this video. Then I listened to the audiobook of Elatsoe by Darcie Little Badger. This was a book club pick, and I was not into it. I was not into it, and I feel like everyone has been loving this book on Goodreads and BookTube, and I was just bored. I was just bored. I will say that I really loved the girl's relationship with her dog. Like, I highly related to that. I mean, if my dog passed away and I could bring her back to life, I would, all right? I have dogs that have passed away, and if I could figure out how to bring them back, I would. So like that really resonated with me, that she's like walking around with her ghost dog. I was so into that. But as for the story itself, like I was set up to have this mystery of who killed this person that's kind of haunting her. And I don't know, I expected to be more into it. I wasn't. And I think it was the way that the story was told. I just didn't like the style of writing, I guess. Like it read very young, even though it was dealing with some adult type things or young adult type issues. It just wasn't for me, and I gave it 2 stars. But then I listened to the audiobook of Ariadne by Jennifer Saint, and this one was a nice little surprise. I gave this 4 stars. I was not familiar with the tale of Ariadne. I knew that she married Dionysus, but I didn't know, the details leading up to that. I'm really into Greek mythology, so honestly, most Greek mythology things I'll pick up if it looks slightly interesting. And this one, this was so good. Like, I feel like this is an author I would want to really read again, because she told a story really well. And it was like a chronological telling of this wife's story, like from start to finish, how she got stranded on an island and found Dionysus and what their marriage was like. And on one hand, when you think of like an entire life of somebody being told in one book, it could sound boring, but I was really into the story, highly into it, gave it 4 stars. I see that she has another one coming out this upcoming year, Electra, and I will definitely read that. Then I read Lakesedge by Lyndall Clipstone. This was another book that I had featured in my chapter sampler vlog, and I was totally into the beginning, that I was like, oh, this seems like some gothic darkness fantasy stuff that I'll be totally into. So going off of that, I was totally into the beginning. I was into the beginning. As the book went on, it dragged on. I had no idea what was happening. I felt like it got stupid at some parts because like, it almost felt like it was trying so hard to be something and it just wasn't panning out, if that makes sense. That was a letdown, because I was so into the beginning that I was like, oh, this is setting up to be something, amazing. Like I really wanted to be into it. And by the end of the book, I was just kind of like, well, that was kind of stupid. So I gave it 2 stars because I was into the beginning, but the rest of the book, Then I listened to the audiobook of The Red Scrolls of Magic. Okay, I know it doesn't say that on the cover. This is the bookish box special cover. Let me show you the actual cover of the book. There we go. That looks familiar, right? Yes. Okay, by Cassandra Clare. This focuses on Magnus and Alec, and I love them in the Mortal Instruments and the whole entire Shadowhunter world. I felt like my expectations weren't high for this one because since it focused on them, I was missing some of the characters that I have really come to love. But dude, I was into this. I thought it was a really great story and it hooked me from beginning to end and I gave it 4 stars. It was a nice Magnus and Alec tale. Then I listened to the audiobook of Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Oh, this did not disappoint. Listen, I know that Caraval is very polarizing. You either hate it or you love it, and there doesn't seem to be anybody that's in between. I am in the love it camp. I love Caraval, so my expectations were high for this. And I am happy to report I gave it 5 stars. I was so into this. I enjoyed hearing about Jax's story. And I think that I was so much more into this because, like, as we got into the second and third books in Caraval, I was like, I want to hear more about Caraval. Like, why are you telling me about this, you know, King of Hearts or whatever? I want to hear about the circus that started in this first book. So I was a little annoyed with that, but I still enjoyed the series. This one, I'm not expecting Caraval, and I'm getting exactly what I expect, and it has nods to other characters that were in Caraval, like Scarlet and Donatella. You know, it mentions them, and they have some dialogue in there too. Like, there is a scene with both of them in there, so you could see how the worlds tie together. I was like, oh, this is totally for me. I know that it's a separate series from Caraval, but I will say that you should read that series first if you have any interest in this one, because I feel like some of the backstory would be lost on you. Like, this dialogue is happening between 2 characters, and they're mentioning the previous relationship between Donatella and Jax, and you're not gonna have any idea what they're talking about if you don't read that series first. So I know that some people say that you don't have to read one to read the other, but I highly disagree. I think you should read Caraval and then go on to this series. And if you like the world of Caraval, you will love this as much as I did. Next, I listened to the audiobook of A Witch Haven by Sasha Peyton Smith. Now, okay, this is one of those 3-star books that I have a hard time remembering. But I do remember it starting off with a bang. Like, there's a murder right in the beginning, and then this girl is taken to it's almost like a magical school, but it's only for women, and I felt like it dealt with themes of feminism and standing up for yourself, and also advocating for yourself. Like, they were being taught tamer things than their male counterparts, you know, so it's like feminism in that time. And also, I believe it was historical. I think this takes place a while ago, right? Like 1910s, 1920s? Correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong because I don't remember a lot, but I'm pretty sure that's right. Oh, I will say, as I just looked at it, oh, look at the sprayed edges. This is from Bookish Box. Love this one. The reason I'm holding on to this, because I usually don't hold on to 3-star books, but I remember thinking at the end, like, I would be curious enough to go on to the next one. Now, I can't tell you why I would be curious enough because I don't remember, but I think when the next one comes out, I would read this physically and see if I enjoy it more than listening to the audiobook and then going on to the next one. I'm gonna have faith in Past Elise though, because I feel like Past Elise would not have said, I'd like to go on to the second book if I didn't want to. Like, why would I say that? So I would reread this one again to remind myself and then go on to the next one. And the last book that I read in the month of October was The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the second book in the Inheritance games, and I feel like anything I say could be a spoiler because it's a lot of information, okay? So if you're not familiar with the Inheritance games, this girl finds out that she has an inheritance from some guy that she's never met. Her family, the guy's family does not trust her, thinks she's a gold digger. They don't believe that all this inheritance was left to her, and they want to find out why. She wants to find out why. She was like, you know, why was I left all this money? Who are you? So you get the taste of that in the first book. The second book continues on with like kind of forming this puzzle and figuring out what this older man had left the rest of his family and this girl to find. I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, but that's honestly all I can say because I feel like anything else would be a spoiler. All right, so those are the 13 books that I read in the month of October. Thank you for tuning into Elise Reads and Speaks, and I will catch you tomorrow for my second day of Vlogmas. Bye, guys.